Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to return to one of my favourite breweries here in Scandinavia. I discovered these guys almost as soon as I got here to Sweden, and they produce some really awesome stuff. Easily one of the best breweries over here. But we're going to go over to Denmark once again, and we're going to revisit Amager Bryghus, and this beer is a little bit different. This one is another in their collaboration series. It's done with Stave Brewery, who are a specialist Brettanomyces brewery from Denver in Colorado, and it's described as being a farmhouse pale ale. It's called Chad, King of the Wild Yeasts. So this should be a bit different from the other ones I've reviewed from Amager for you before. Most of them have been IPAs and pale ales, but this one is supposed to be a Brettanomyces kind of sour beer combination, if you like. So it should be very interesting. As I said, it comes in at 5%, and on Rate Beer it's rated at 91, but in the style it's rated at 60. So that tells you it should be a very good beer, but it doesn't really fit into the style bracket. So it should be a very interesting one for us to take a look at. And my first encounter, of course, with Stave. So I'm sure this will be a good review. But anyway, as is usual with my beer reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you do want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual websites are in the description below. That's both breweries' websites. The link to my future reviews that I'll do from Stave. As I said, my first encounter with those guys, and there's the link to all my other Amager reviews. There's about 10 of those now, and there will definitely be more in the near future. There's all the usual social media, Facebook, Twitter and Untappd, so please follow me on there. If you want to see more beer reviews, do subscribe to the channel, and don't hesitate to get in touch and let me know some of the beers and breweries that you'd like me to see me review. So anyway, to tell you about Amager Bryghus first. So as I mentioned to you, Amager Bryghus are based in Kastrup in Copenhagen, very close to the big airport actually, but these guys are probably the best known Danish craft brewery outside of Toil and Mikkeller. But of course these guys do actually brew their beer in Denmark. Toil and Mikkeller brew a lot of their stuff in Belgium. But the brewery was established in 2007 by two young friends, Morten Valentin Lundsbach and Jakob Storm, and both of them were quite avid homebrewers, and apparently in school their whole love affair with beer started when they were forced to do a chemistry and physics project together. So they wrote about the fermentation process in beers. So this was really, they caught on at a very early age. But after opening in April 2007, their beers quickly established themselves around Copenhagen, and soon their first brew kit was too small to meet demand. So they upscaled their facility, and in 2011 they upscaled and got their new brewing equipment that they've got. If you look at the pictures of their brewery, it's crammed full with all these kind of sexy silverware things, so it's quite an interesting place I guess to go and visit. But apparently they have quite a humorous approach to their beer, and you'll see this with the kind of random things that they like to write on the side, and this has caused them a few problems when they've exported to like Norway, Sweden, Finland and Iceland as well, where you have nationalised beer shops, because they're not taking alcohol seriously, if you like, or according to what these people say. But they do produce some awesome beer, so that's really not true. But you'll read some of these random things on the side and it's quite funny, but nevertheless it hasn't stopped their brewery growing and becoming very well known. They produce some awesome beer, and if you haven't tried the Amager stuff, you really need to, because it is some of the best beer you're going to find from Scandinavia. So anyway, to tell you about Stave Artisan Beer Project. So Stave, as I mentioned, are a specialist Brettanomyces or wild yeast brewery, and they're based in Denver in Colorado. And the company was founded by Chad Jacobsen in 2010, who actually trained as a brewer at Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh, which isn't too far away from where I'm from, maybe about half an hour or so, and it's a very famous program actually that has produced a lot of good craft beer brewers. The one that always sticks in my mind is the guy at Einstök in Iceland. He produces some really awesome stuff too, but it's produced a lot of good craft beer, that program. But he had previously studied bacterial science in Colorado, and he'd worked and studied wine in New Zealand before then he moved to London and worked as an assistant brewer. He then turned a disused cupboard, or closet as they would call it in America, into an experiment with Brettanomyces, and this was where his interest in wild beers, sour beers, Brettanomyces beers was really born. But after working with Odell Brewing and finishing his dissertation from Heriot-Watt, he founded Stave in 2010, and the first Stave beers were actually produced at Funkwerks, a specialist saison brewery in Fort Collins, Colorado. But the brewery now have their brewery and taproom in The Source, which is an old foundry building from the 1800s, and this is home to an artisan market. You'll find this on Brighton Boulevard in the River North neighbourhood of Denver. I think Denver, of course, is the capital city of Colorado, but here they have a 20-barrel pilot brewery system, and they have an open-air coolship for fermenting wort as well. And the brewery is named after the wooden slats on barrels called staves, and apparently these dry out and get crooked over time. So Chad decided to name his brewery after this because he was drawn to the science, the quite complex art and science of barrel aging. So a very, very interesting brewery. As I said, my first encounter with them, and I know Amager are very, very good. And this collaboration series that they've done is a very, very high standard of beer. So let's actually get on to the tasting section of this video. So as I mentioned to you, this guy is a 5% sour ale. It's hopped with Simcoe, Mosaic, Citra, Amarillo, and it has a malt base of Pilsner and caramel with some flaked oats, and it uses a CMY Brettanomyces strain. The side note on this one is, it says, after long years of beer geeks discussing hops to exhaustion, now yeast is finally getting a glimpse of the spotlight. This tiny little creature has for way too long been leading a Batman-like existence, outcast, living in the shadows and not getting enough credit for its work. However, the importance of fermentation is no news to Chad Michael Jacobson from Colorado's Crooked Stave Brewery. He has been following with various fermenting agents for longer than most people have been drinking. So it was on a beautiful spring day that Mr. Jacobson came to Amager to bombard us with simpletons with his knowledge on all things yeasty and especially bretty. However, due to stubbornness from our end, we still insisted that the brewery had to gather a motherfucker of hops. The answer to what ingredient won the battle lies within this bottle, but in our opinion we are all winners. As you can see, here are the symbols on the side for Crooked Stave and Amager Bryghus. I'll just bring up the camera again and make sure that you're seeing that. You can see Crooked Stave here, just on this side, and then you can see Amager. This is also on the bottle cap, of course, and there is the standard awesome artwork from Amager. The stuff that you have, you can probably see on a couple of the bottles behind me, actually up there, there is some awesome artwork from Amager Bryghus. I really love their stuff that they do. So without further ado then, let's get stuck into this beer. As I mentioned, this is a 5% sour beer, or wild ale I guess you could call it, from Amager Bryghus in Copenhagen and Crooked Stave in Colorado. So it should be very, very interesting. You know, Citra, Simcoe, Mosaic and Amarillo, this should be a very awesome beer. And it actually does smell kind of like a pale ale or something like that as you pour it. You don't really get the kind of Brettanomyces, but I'm sure when we take a closer look at the aroma, we will be able to see that. So as you can see, this beer, it actually looks like a German Helles or something. That's quite interesting. A very kind of light, pale golden colour. It looks really, really nice. There's one or two little bits of sediment just floating around in there, but it's a very kind of fine particle, if you like. There's a quarter finger of a frothy white head there, but I've only poured about 2/3 of the bottle, I guess. But it looks very nice. If I put my fingers behind it, you can see there is a degree of transparency. But the beer looks very, very nice. There's some big carbonation bubbles just sticking to the side there, but quite a few little ones just going up towards the bottom of the head. So a very, very attractive looking beer. Let's give it a smell and see how we get on. So without sugaring up, I guess, it really does smell like a pale ale. You know, you've got the Citra and the Simcoe really coming out in this one. You can smell the orange from the Amarillo kind of just underpinning all of this. Amarillo has that very distinct orangey citrus character, but underneath that you can really smell the tropical fruit bowl that you would expect of Citra and Simcoe. You know, there's a little bit of grapefruit in there, but the passion fruit is really coming out, and the apricots, that's mainly the Simcoe that gives you that. The Citra gives you the more mango-y and sort of papaya notes, and peaches as well. There's definitely that kind of almost dusty peachy character in this one, and that of course is the Citra. But without sugaring it up, it smells very juicy and very fruity. So let's sugar it up a little bit more and see what we can get out of this. Oh yeah, when you sugar it up, you start to get more complexity to the hop aromas in this one. It really does. You get more of the floral aromaticity out of this, and of course, pretty much all the hops that they've put in this, Citra, Simcoe, Amarillo and Mosaic, they all have a little bit of floral aromaticity. You can get a little bit of the earthy character out of this too when you sugar it up, which is a characteristic of the Mosaic hop. You can really smell that in here, and you also get some of the sweet caramel and almost biscuity malts from that you would get from the oaty characteristics in this. Pilsner malt is really apparent too. But if I'm completely honest about this, I really can't smell much in the way of sour character. I really can't smell that kind of sharp citrusy note that you would always expect from a Brettanomyces beer. It's actually really, as far as I can tell, it's just not there. You can smell, there maybe is just a little tiny touch of it, you know. I'm really trying to pay attention to this and just see if there's something I'm missing, but if I'm honest, this beer it smells like a pale ale. It smells like an American pale ale, exactly. But I guess we'll definitely taste it in the flavour. So I mean, let's get stuck into this beer. As I always say, it's always worthwhile having a good smell of your beers before you get stuck in. And with Amager, you're always going to get some of these nice, complex, fruity hops. So when you try an Amager beer, definitely just take a little bit of time to smell it. So let's get stuck into this beer then. This is the Chad beer, collaboration beer, King of the Wild Yeasts, from Crooked Stave in Colorado, but brewed at Amager Bryghus in Kastrup in Copenhagen, one of the collaboration series. So let's get stuck into this guy. Skål. That is quite interesting. Sugar it around your palate a little bit and just get a taste for this beer. Yeah, I think the hops and the malts in this one kind of, there is a little bit of the sour Brettanomyces character in this one. But overall, I can see, you know, as I said, this beer was rated 91 on Rate Beer overall, but within the style it only had 61. There's really not that much Brettanomyces character coming out of this beer. Even when you sugar it around your palate and your whole palate is adjusted, the Brettanomyces isn't too apparent in this one. There is a little bit of the sharp kind of lemon sherbet citrus that you would expect of the beer, but really for a beer that's kind of meant to be like a sour ale or something like that, I'll just put the rest of it in and see if that at all makes a difference. I'm not sure if it will, but for a beer that's supposed to have some of the sour beer, it doesn't really have that Brettanomyces presence. Yeah. For me, it really comes in as more of a pale ale. I mean, there is a little bit of the sharp, lemony sherbet citrus character in there, but it's really not as prominent as you would expect, to be honest. The malt base in this beer, like the middle of your tongue, is blanketed with a kind of bready character. There's some sweet biscuity malts in there and a bit of richer caramel, but you've got a lot of dryness too from the flaked oats. It has that cereally character in there, and that dryness is carrying into the aftertaste and just sitting there. There's a lot of hoppy character coming out as well, which is what you would expect from Amager. I mean, it is a very good beer. You're never ever going to get a bad beer from Amager or from Crooked Stave, I would guess. But the Brettanomyces is just, it's just quite a subtle note. It's not as big and as prominent as you would expect. Yeah, you can get a little bit of it, but it's really just not prominent at all. So the middle of the palate is blanketed with a nice bready malt base, as I said. On top of that, you get some sweet biscuity malts and some richer caramel too. As you go right down the middle of the tongue, there's a lot of sweet caramel there. There's a good kind of cereal dryness to this, and that's with the flaked oats that they've added to this. You can really get that cereally, kind of dry, almost slightly bitter character in the middle of the taste. You can hear the ambulance just going outside my window just now. But yeah, it's a very, very nice beer, this one. But as I said, I would expect a little bit more when it was when it was meant to be a sour beer. That's the only thing. But I mean, all the flavours in it blend together really well. At the back corner of the palate, you've got a little bit of that earthy character, which of course is what you expect when the mosaic hop is involved. It's a really nice one to add. This little subtle earthy character. It's actually quite dark, but as you come further forward, the beer becomes more floral and aromatic. You get that character from the Citra, the mosaic, and the Simcoe in here, and of course the Amarillo. All of the hops have an element of floral aromaticity to them. There's a bit of smooth, grassy character around the front curve of the tongue, and just behind that, when you go to the little oily bubble that comes out, that's where a lot of the fruitiness is coming out. You can detect some of the orange. As I said, there's a little bit of the Brettanomyces in there. Yeah, definitely some orangey citrus. There is quite a bit of passion fruit in this one. But the beer, because of the cereally character, because of the oats that are in this beer, it doesn't quite come across as juicy as the likes of the Arctic Sunstone or the Christian's Haven's Pale Ale or something like that. This one's a little bit drier than that. But there's passion fruit in there, there's a bit of grapefruit, some orangey citrus too. You can detect a little bit of apricot, I think, and some, and perhaps just a little bit of peaches. There's a good blend of tropical fruits going on in there, but it's quite subtle, and that's because of how prominent the earthy character is and the oaty flavours that are in there too. The floral aromaticity actually smooths out quite nicely, but into the aftertaste, for me, the real big element is that kind of cereally character that you're getting from this beer. This beer almost comes across as more like a kind of rye pale ale or something like that. It doesn't really come across as the kind of farmhouse pale ale that it sort of was marketed as, I would say. Because I mean, in fairness, it does have a little bit of a kind of farmhousey saison character to it, but it's nowhere. The malt base is nowhere near as sharp and as lemony as it should be for this style of beer. But you know, it is a very good beer. There's no mistake in that. You're never going to get a bad beer from Amager. The debate I'm having is about style, and of course, when it comes to reviewing beer, you can talk about styles all day, but the main point is that it's a good beer. You've got two very good breweries involved here, and they have produced a good beer. But for it being, as I said, for it meant to having been a wild ale, or when it's saying King of the Wild Yeasts, you do expect a little bit more from the Brettanomyces side of things, and that just isn't happening in this beer. This one, for me, comes across a little bit more as a rye pale ale, like I was saying. But that said, it's a very good beer. Both breweries involved here produce some awesome stuff, so you know, you can talk about styles all day, but the main point is it's a very good beer. So yeah, as always, if you have tried this beer before, let me know your own thoughts on the flavour. I would be especially interested to know about this one. I should also mention the mouthfeel on this. This is a mid-bodied beer. Carbonation is very smooth, it's slightly oily. There's a good bit of, there is a little bit of sour character, but for me, there's a good dry malt base to this one. It's quite cereally, like I said. There's a bit of juicy fruit character, but there's a lot of dryness from the earthy character and the hops and some of the floral aromaticity too. But overall, like I say, doesn't really fit the style it's marketed as, but it's a very good beer, and you would expect nothing less from either Crooked Stave or from Amager Bryghus. So if you get the chance, do check this out. But like I was saying, if you have tried this beer before, please let me know your own thoughts on it in the comments section below. Always interesting to hear from you guys that are trying the beers along with me. But I thank you once again for watching the beer reviews. Until the next one, pardon me, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Do go and check out the social media things too, but most importantly, go and check out Amager Bryghus in Copenhagen and also Crooked Stave in Denver and Colorado. Hopefully I can get a hold of some of their sour beers and have a look at those. Sour beers is a style that I'm really starting to get into recently, so I need to get in touch with them and see if we can sort something out to review some of their beers. But thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, Slange just now, go and check out some of the Amager beers and some of the Crooked Stave. I'll catch you soon. Cheers.